All councillors who were present are, but Councillor Arthur is leaving the room in anticipation of agenda item 342. Okay, Dan, you've got a series of motions here, and just for the purposes of clarity, you want to just guide us, not through just what we're doing with the whole lot of them, so people don't think we're talking about the same money all the time.
Yep. Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
just want to interrupt there for a second. The footpath in Booker Street, where's that going?
It's in the showgrounds for the caravan park, people to walk up to the main street.
Just along the oval fence? Not coming down on the next block? I've got a house in Booker Street, but it's not going anywhere near that block there, so you're comfortable with that?
Yep.
Right.
Right. Dan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So a number of the resolutions we got here are more, or recommendations here, sorry, I suppose in some cases for the first couple, we did have noted in the budget that a number of programs were funded by Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program, or the LRCIP, or the Roads to Recovery Program, which is the next report. But I suppose this is just about us formalising the submission to for the LRCIP to the federal government as part of that process to get that approved, and once that's approved, well, they can actually start work on these programs. So the first one is for the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program. So council received notification of, or twice earlier this year, that we've been allocated funding through that program to a total of just over $2 million. The program funding that we are recommending, this followed the noting of what's in the budget really, which is the Regional Floodways and Upgrades Program for $600,000, the Cattle Cross-Loading Facility at Alpha for $100,000, Booker Street Pathway in Aramac for $100,000, and the Rural Road Sealing Program for the remainder, which is $1.23 million. We did also receive notification through the process of this that, I don't know if it was formally, I think it might have been formally, that the preference from the Department of Infrastructure and Transport, Regional Development, Communications and Arts, it's a mouthful, that they preferred it to be on road infrastructure. So with Booker Street in there, that's more around a road safety project. So to have those campers in particular not walking on the road, which is, I think it is the main road through that road. So
B and C are both road safety in that respect, and B is also for the safety of transport operators in that decoupling location, and to refine the cross-loading process so that other trailers that are not impacted by carting cattle have still got a location to break up their type 2 configurations.
Yep. So the recommendation is that council acknowledge and thank the department for their continued funding of this program and endorse the submission of the projects officers are looking to put forward for round 4 of the LRCIP.
Questions? Councillor Peoples.
The resealing program.
No, that's a sealing program, not reseal. So that's what will be nominated.
Sealing program, sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereabouts is that?
So that's the resolution that we will look at. 345. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is the funding of the program, and then we'll go into the next resolution coming up for that rural road sealing program is the actual projects we deliver under that program.
So the first resolution nominates the broad programs to the department, and then the subsequent resolutions nominate internally what we're going to do. So the floodway program, for example, it's two resolutions time. So we're just saying that we're putting 600,000 into that, and then in 2 resolutions we'll say where. And in the rural road sealing program, we're saying 1.23 million, and in 3 resolutions we'll say where.
So 800,000 to start now, 336.
Unallocated at this stage, but there is some nomination there.
336 of local roads in that 3.4.5. Is that to be decided, or do you know where that's going?
That's to be decided in that resolution. Oh, yes. So, in the report, we talk about the preference being for it to go towards, I think it was Maroubria Road. Saying that right?
Yeah, Membryo.
Maroubria Road. So that is where, but I suppose being that that's not going to be completed this financial year, that's still something that will take place in next year's budget anyway. A formal allocation of that funding for next year's budget. But that will occur, I suppose that conversation is more as part of 3, 4, 5 report.
I just want to see where it's going to be removing this motion now. They follow along, yeah.
That's right, you can change where it goes even after you move this resolution though. Yeah, we're saying that of that money that we have to allocate, we'd like to put this much to each of these broad programs, and then where we break the broad programs up is then subsequently going to be decided in a minute. Okay. Councillor Gleeson? Councillor Plum?
All good.
Do I have a mover? Councillor Plum, second. Councillor Gleeson. Those in favour? 6-0. 3, 4, 3.
So as a second funding allocation that we've received is from the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications and the Arts, is the Roads to Recovery program, which we are in now in year 5 of that current agreement that we have, which means the remainder of the funds need to be expended this year, or we basically lose that funding. So,
Mr Mayor, sorry to interrupt again, but where you would say Town Streets Upgrades Program, does that include Gordon Street, which then we nominate in a later motion? So if it does, I probably need to leave.
we're only up, this report, I'm just giving clarity as opposed to advice, but this is just, I suppose, funding the program as opposed to the specific projects.
Yeah, so you don't have a conflict yet. It's only when we allocate the money to the individual projects that your conflict arises.
Okay, as long as you're comfortable with that.
You know, definitely that we're just saying that the resolution is saying that we'll reseal to the value of 1.2, we'll upgrade some town streets to the value of 550, we'll upgrade some floodways to the value of 287. Where they are isn't in this.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So the
It's why I think Councillor Arthur is using extreme caution to be out of the room, because I don't believe he's got a conflict of interest in this at any point. It's only when we award the tenders that I think he does. But I can understand the tenuous link there, because someone could allege that he's steering a big heap of money in discretionary spending into areas that will benefit his employer. In the Roads Recovery Program, I don't know what else we can spend it on, because his employer benefits from everything we do potentially. But anyway, but in your case, you're just looking at it as an affected landholder, not relevant yet.
Righto.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So the only other thing I suppose I wanted to add there was the $2 million we have remaining. It does include a fair bit of carry forward, I suppose, amount that has been allocated. That has been allocated as part of the Roads to Recovery program. That wasn't allocated to specific projects here in Paul Regional Council. So the projects are the reseal program, be fully funded, that $1.2 million allocation, the Town Street Upgrade program, the Regional Floodways program, as well as some additional funding there as well.
Okay. Questions?
Can roads recovery money be spent on state roads?
Jim? No. Local government. I didn't know that, but for sure, but it is. Councillor Plum? Councillor Hanson?
Good, thanks, Mr. Mayor, please.
Councillor? Further question?
No, thanks.
Councillor Rod? Do I have a mover? Councillor Plum, second to Councillor Hanson. Those in favour? 6-0. Right. Floodway upgrades, 344.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So there's a few things at work here that I need to go through. So this is looking at the floodway capital program allocation. So currently in the budget that was adopted in June, Council adopted a $300,000 program for 23-24 and another $300,000 program for 24-25, which is the split of what was just allocated in that LRCIP report. What we're looking for here is the amendment of the 23-24 program budget from $300,000 to $387,000, and then the 24-25 program be amended from $300,000 to $400,000. So the idea of that is because of that additional roads to recovery allocation towards the floodway program. So it was an additional $287,000. So the additional $100,000 that's not allocated there goes towards a carry forward floodway on Stagmount Road, which was flagged as R2R, but we didn't have it allocated through the R2R program. So does that make sense previously? So last year in the 22-23 budget, there was a Stagmount Road floodway in that program. It's not yet delivered, and it was flagged as being delivered by R2R funding, and it wasn't allocated in the R2R program as a project. So that is, last report has resolved that. So the remaining $187,000 is being added to this year's program for that as well. So that's the budget amendment. The allocation of the projects for the funding for this year, that's $387,000. So the senior work supervisors have provided a fair bit of feedback on this and have recommended or have provided a fair bit of information to support the officer's view here that Dunbar Road on Sunday Creek Floodway, the Sunday Creek Floodway is a proposed project for this year. Also the various gravel crossings on Bowen Downs Road, Culladar and Kensington Road. That project's proposed to be funded by LRCIP as well. The Stagmount floodways, two floodways on Stagmount Road at change 25.98 and 28.11. And then also the design for floodways on Stagmount Road, the three of them. Craven Road has two floodways and they be designed as well, and Ballanidi Road Pots as the sixth project there going forward. So in the in the 23-24 program, the proposed projects are Dunbar Road, the two Stagmount Road floodways, and the gravel floodways and crossings on Bowen Downs, Culladar and Kensington Road to the value of $40,000, as well as the design, I suppose, for those other roads as well.
And then there's still $400,000 unallocated to then pick up on those projects that are designed in this financial year.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Once we get the costings and then identify the next round.
Yep.
Right, Councillor Peebles.
No, thank you.
Oh, well, does anyone not understand that? Councillor, please. Sorry.
Figures don't add up, Mr Mayor. I'm sorry, we just approved in items 4.3 and 4.2, I think it is, that there's $887,000 in floodways, and those figures there add up to 787.
Is the other 100 the design?
So across the two previous reports, we've got councillors approved 600 plus 287,000, so 887,000.
Yes.
The two programs there are for 787,000. So the other 100,000 is to fund the Stagmount, is the allocation to the Stagmount Road project that was carried forward from the previous budget. So in the previous budget, it was flagged as R2R funding, but it wasn't actually recorded in the R2R program as a project.
Thank you. Excuse me, thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
Very good, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Plum. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hanson, a seconder. Councillor Plum. Debate. Those in favour? Carried. 6-0. 345.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This is the Rural Road Sealing Capital Program allocation. So the program for this was the 1.2 million that was allocated in the LRCIP. So in the current program, for this year, there was 800,000 adopted as part of the budget. So the senior work supervisors and along with myself and the CEO have sat down and worked through a number of roads in our rural space that are gravel that could be considered for sealing. We put together a bit of a matrix on a number of aspects, looking at the safety of those roads, the current condition of those roads, also the amount of use those roads get as well. And coming out of that, we identified that we also looked at some other aspects as well about whether the road was, the section that we wanted to seal was in between two currently sealed sections potentially, or whether there was other factors like it had recently had work on the roads. And coming out of that assessment, Star Downs Road, the first 3.5 kilometres was identified as the, we call it the priority project, but more, I suppose, the preferred project. Aramac Jericho Road East was second, Aramac Jericho Road West was third, Buckhorn Downs and Home Creek Road. Then, I suppose, what we looked at before we went too much further was how we want funding allocated to these roads going forward. And the idea is that we have potentially have a larger project where we do a decent section of road sealing and then a smaller section of sealing on another road in another part of the region. And sort of with the three areas, sort of using that as a bit of a guide that we're trying to do a little bit in each area in turn. So given the Aramac Jericho Road West has currently got a significant project happening now of sealing extension there. That's why Star Downs is preferred as the major project for this year. Going forward, the remaining funding, and I do note I've got an error there, it should be 436,000 in 24-25. We haven't allocated that just yet because we do want to get some more information for officers' point of view, but certainly council can make a different decision in next budget. So I suppose the preferred option we're looking at this stage is Moobria Road as a smaller project with the remaining funding in the 24-25 program. But that's not looking for a resolution on that element today. So the recommendation for today is that the approved allocation of 800,000 for the program be allocated to Star Downs Road Alpha for the first 3.5K for delivery this financial year. Yeah, so can we adjust that to 436 in note 2?
I actually thought that's what your initial question might have been because the two figures didn't balance from the two reports. But anyway, now, Councillor Higgins.
Mr. Mayor, my question is, we prioritise roads here, and I've raised the Ilfracombe Aramac Road, on several occasions. Understand that these roads are coming in under your regional roads of regional significance. I don't think state roads can come in under that. Is that right, Mr. Mayor?
For LRCIP, I'm not sure. I'm just checking, actually.
My issue is, where does it get a mention or where does it get a priority from management? Because at this stage it's not.
So they weren't considering any of our state roads in this, though, either, like Alpha Tambo Clermont. No state roads. Aramac Buckhorn, Aramac Torrens Creek, Aramac Munabara, none of them were considered because they're state roads. They looked purely at our roads when they were developing this.
Mr. Mayor, those other roads have already got some state funding behind them. This one hasn't. And if we don't make it a priority in some shape or form, it's never going to. Like at this stage, we've named 5 roads there, it doesn't get mentioned in the priority list.
So a Lars road, as in terms of priority roads, it can be either a state or a local road.
Yep.
We designate that. So, but this is not Lars funding, there isn't actually any funding for that at all. This is LRCIP, so just let me have a look.
Well, in that paragraph just before the 5 nominated roads, it says category 1 or local roads of regional significance, and then it's got in a double RS there beside it in brackets.
Yeah, that's right, because that's what our road categorises those roads as.
Is that your Lars?
That's Lars, yes, and but not Lars that were state roads. Like the state roads, there's heaps of other state roads like here to Buckle, here to Aramac that would be considered if they were to consider them as well.
So Ilfracombe could be considered in that 5?
Yeah. I don't know if it's eligible for LRCIP funding, but you can consider any road. Just let me check whether it fits the program. You can classify a road, we can internally classify any road, a Lars road, but the ownership of the road is where it really fits. So in the org structure for road hierarchy, I think it's category 2. And from a funding perspective, it's a hierarchy 2 as well.
So probably where I'm going, Mr. Mayor, how do we start getting this road some recognition? Because I think it'd be, you know, I won't comment about Star Downs, but I think Aramac would prefer work on that road before some others. Like the Aramac community, people in the Aramac community might go to Longreach 10 times a year through Ilfracombe, but I don't think too many will travel to Jericho. I'm just asking that it starts to get some sort of priority and gets on some list somewhere, Mr. Mayor.
Well, it is on the, as a state road, it's definitely on the road funding hierarchy for the regional roads group. It's definitely on that.
But it's not on too much here in our own boardroom.
Well, no, I guess none of the state roads are though. We don't have Buckle and Aramac on there either, but it's one that we actively chase funding for. Well, it's one the state actively gives us funding for, I should say. But yes, we can develop a hierarchy of state roads.
And it doesn't have to be a hierarchy of roads, it's just a hierarchy of roads that probably community would like to see some work done.
I guess in terms of when we're advocating for state funding or funding for state roads, because the feds fund some of them as well directly, what are the priority for those roads? That's probably what we need to know. Like, do we shift the focus off Buckle and Aramac onto Buckle and Ilfracombe Aramac?
No.
Because at the moment, that's our number 1 priority, is the sealing of.
But we're doing that as a number 1 priority, but we're still doing roads, you know, Alpha to Clermont, and we're still doing other roads too.
Yeah, we haven't got any of them. We're not actually, like, so the funding, the only work we're doing on the state corridor down there, we didn't actually chase $1 for. It just caught us out of the blue, and that's the Cap Highway. It wasn't even in our top 5. It was below, in terms of the region's priorities as well as ours, it was below Ilfracombe, but it got funded because it got picked from down here to come up by the feds.
Yeah,
through the roads.
You'll beat corridor.
No, it's not. Cap Highway's not.
No, I said the Clermont.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's right. And so the 3 priorities in the regional roads group, numbers 1, 2 and 3 are Buckle and Aramac, Clermont Alpha and Alpha Tambo. So we can lobby for Ilfracombe Aramac to go above them if we want, because it's next.
I never said that at all, Mr. Mayor, that we lobby for it to go above them.
Well, they fund them in the order that we ask for them.
But
like, we deliver the TIDS funding where we want it to go.
But Mr. Mayor, we also got council money, and in the past, we've spent money on state roads, is the point I'm making. We spent money on the Torrens Creek Road, a lot of money of council funds, and we spent money on the Muttaburra to the Longreach boundary of council money. So if we can spend money, council money, on a state road.
Sorry, I thought you were looking at it from an advocacy point of view. Certainly
No.
we can. Certainly, we can't spend roads to recovery funding on it, but we can spend our own money on it, definitely. Or possibly even this money could go on it. Local, LRCLP, I just can't find that it's not allowed, which usually means it is. They usually expressly rule that. So yes, this money could go on that road, yes.
And we've got a priority of roads here. I know it's come to council for us to make a decision today, but probably this is the first we've seen that we're going to make these a priority. Star Downs, we've been talking about it for ages.
We did talk about these same roads at our last workshop. This document is a product of what we discussed at the last workshop. But yeah, council at local governments can spend their money wherever they want. Their own money, they can spend it on those roads for sure. And possibly even this money.
Well, Mr Mayor, that's all I'm asking is that, you know, I see that as a priority for the people that live over in that Aramac district. A lot of them do travel to Longreach, football, cluster days, plane, you know, there's a lot of things they go to Longreach to run their businesses and for, you know, social reasons. So I think it's a road that would have a higher priority amongst the people over there. And that's all I'm asking.
Are higher than our own local roads? Any higher than any of the other state roads?
No.
So if we were to, I'll come to you, Councillor Gleeson, just in terms of understanding for officers, if we were to look at spending money on improving roads that weren't ours, would we be better satisfying the community if we were to commit some funding to sealing the remainder of Buckfall and Aramac, or commence the sealing of Aramac Torrens Creek? Or which would be the priority locally in Aramac?
The Barcall and Aramac road.
Right.
Everyone wants to see that widened.
So in hierarchy, we'd go Buckfall and Aramac and then Ilfracombe Aramac, given that the other one's fully sealed and it's a long way of widening.
Yeah, I'd say so, but that's a tricky one about the widening on that other one too. But it'd be a 50-50.
But they'd be the two.
They'd be the two.
There's nothing to do further on Muttaburra Aramac really.
No,
It's a good road.
happy with that road.
So in terms of, there's a TIDS job that we're doing on the Buckfall and Aramac Road, which doesn't complete it. It's in about 2 years, I think. It's not this financial year, it's next financial year, so it's less than 2 years away. If council was to spend money, would it be better spending it then to finish the job and get it done once and for all, and then have the TIDS funding free in our next go round, which would be 3 years after that, to put to either of the next two priorities, either Ilfracombe Aramac or do you think we do the two at the same time?
What's the job you want to complete?
The widening of Buckfall and Aramac
Oh,
Road.
no, I think that needs to be completed.
Yeah, so but the next TIDS job, what I'm saying, is not enough to finish it.
Yep.
So in your mind, I'm asking you personally,
Yep.
as a representative from that area, would we be, instead of putting 800,000 or $1 million into starting a progressive seal of Ilfracombe Aramac, would we be better off putting the first lot of that money into sealing Buckfall and Aramac, widening Buckfall and Aramac, and then doing it all in one job, then it's knocked over, and then use our next $2.5 to $2.6 million of TIDS funding to start those other priorities then? Or do we do it both at the same time?
My understanding is the state are pretty keen to complete the widening of this road.
They haven't indicated that that's likely to happen though. Like, it's not that there's one job left and that's it. There's nothing on their radar that we've seen that says that they're going to give us the next lump of money. We've got to put the TIDS money ourselves into that. That's not, like, that's the money that we get the discretion of. They aren't giving us any, yeah.
I think the majority of the people over my way would like to see that road widened first, Mr Mayor.
So, and if we were,
But,
it's just a second job, that's all.
no, yeah, understand, but they'd like to see that widened, but some of the other areas where we're spending money, they might prefer to put that on Ilfracombe. I don't think they want to take anything away or slow down the widening of the Aramac Barcall. I think that's number one. But some of the other areas where we might be going to spend money, they probably prefer to go on the Ilfracombe Road.
So, like, can we pick something,
Well,
given that we can't use roads to recovery money, like it's denied under the current terms and conditions?
Mr Mayor, we've got, what's the 436,000 there for? That's to go to unallocated for projects.
That's going to just staying in the program, and the decision for that would be made as part of next year's budget. At the moment, if we wanted to allocate today, the officer's recommendation would be for Moonbury Road. And the main call for that recommendation is that there's a project currently happening on the Aramac Jericho Road. At the moment, there's the Star Downs Road is getting a go in the east, and it was a smaller project for the Barcaldine area.
Yep, no, look, and I don't even know what the job is at Moonbury and, how big a priority it's got, but they're the sorts of things that I would like to see come across to Ilfracombe without taking away from the big widening job that we do. And just, can we start doing a little bit of work there, son? But Mr Mayor, I've probably had my say, and
No, we're talking about what we seal, and for this purpose, the officers didn't consider it because it wasn't our asset. So it wasn't even, it's not that they ranked these 5 as more important, it's because it wasn't ours, it wasn't considered. So a different assessment could have happened if they were given in, well, we're going to spend this money on any road, pick the roads. But that's, even though you said, Councillor, that previous councils have spent money on state roads, they were a very long time ago. And in recent times, both this council and the last council hasn't spent any of its own money sealing the state roads. So officers' local history here haven't been to go and consider state controlled roads when putting recommendations to us. It hasn't been our current practice. So to change would take a policy, not a written formal policy, but an understanding to officers from council that they're quite happy for that to be a consideration, which is important that now get discussed as part of this, even if it's a separate resolution, but future. There's no better time to have the conversation than right now because we're spending money on sealing the road. So don't worry about how long it takes. Councillor Gleeson, I did tell you 3.75 hours ago I was going to come here, or I finally have, because I've finished with Councillor Peoples for the time being.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, I just agreeing with Councillor Peoples to a certain extent, but I would just like to, has there been much information, is there a road counter, has there been a road counter on the Barcaldine, Aramac Ilfracombe Road in recent times? If there hasn't, we should
No, TMR, I can get that from TMR.
Yeah.
They do all the road counters on their roads.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't even do the ones that, like, we don't do it for them, it's something they manage separately from us.
So even the counters on our rural roads?
No, we do.
We do ours.
Yeah, right.
It's a restart.
We identified the roads last workshop, so we're calibrating now and putting them out.
That was my question, Mr Mayor, to get accurate information of traffic, and then we can prioritise in different manners. But what we're talking about here, the 436. The 436 is unallocated at this point in time, so we come back to that.
Well, next council will, because it's in next year's budget, 24-25.
Yeah.
We can't deliver any more work. Like, another reason it hasn't been fully expended is we just physically, there's a limit to what we can do with $60 million worth of flood damage. And we don't have to have the project completed until the 24-25 financial year, that's right, then. So we've left that job unallocated, although there is an indication where it might be spent if the current situation is to remain. Councillor Haynes, thank you.
No, thanks, Mr.
Councillor Plum. Councillor Rogers. There's a broader, I think there does need to be a much broader conversation around use of where the council is comfortable seeing its money spent, or money that it has the discretion to decide where it's spent on the state corridor. There's two roads, one's a state controlled road, one's a local government road that we own, that probably don't see enough attention for the fact that they're the shortcut road, or the most direct road for two communities, and that's the Bowen Downs Road.
Yep.
And that road that you're discussing, Aramac, Ilfracombe. They're two problem roads in my mind. And not problems, sorry, that's not the right, but they're two vexing issues in that realistically we're coughing up all the maintenance money for Bowen Downs for an absolute infinitesimal fraction of the traffic that use it. And on, like, the majority of the traffic that use that's not ours, whereas the Ilfracombe Aramac Road, which is a state road, the biggest benefit of that road is to our people, if you know what I mean, and yet we're not seeing the flow of investment. So I probably don't agree personally with the use of local money on state roads, but if I was to see an exception to the rule, it probably would be that one, because it's a bit unique. Like, I couldn't personally justify the investment of money, of council's money in the ceiling of the Cleveland Alpha Road when it carries such a vital significance to the state's infrastructure and transport link. Like, I just couldn't say there'd be any benefit to council directly out of sealing that road. But the same's not the case for Ilfracombe Aramac. It's really only a benefit to us to see that. Its predominant benefit would be to our residents to see that sealed. So the justification to do something on that road with our money is probably higher than it is on those bigger, higher order state roads to the east, if that makes sense. I don't know that I'm over the line on it, but I can definitely see a justification that exists for that would never justify, I could never justify in the east. And as we see the other thing is, as we see the sealing of just about every other state road, like, you're right, it would appear that we've got committed funds to seal those two eastern roads. That leaves that as the only state road in our patch that's not fully sealed, with no seal on it effectively in our part. So realistically, it becomes a big red light then. We either use some of our money to do something, to match some funds from the state, or we start and ask, why isn't it? You know, and we get the TIDS funding, once we spend it on this other job, we get a big lick of money there that could go that way. You know, you could be doing $2.8 million worth of sealing a year. It wouldn't take long to get a long way along there then.
And Mr Mayor, it's not lost on me that we're funding, or considering funding a state road. I don't really want to have to do that too, but I think you've also got to weigh up that the effects that road not being sealed has on people that we represent, because the state aren't doing their job.
That's right. That's the justification that you can make. And I mean, the reverse is, because the state isn't funding Bowen Downs, we've got to do it. And, you know, at times that road surface can be pretty loose and pretty ordinary. And we might have only been there 6 or 8, 10 weeks before grading it. For the limited number of ratepayers that it serves, much higher levels of service required, you know, so. We might move to this resolution. I think the officers are now very aware that we'd like to keep an eye on that. So a conversation for the new Director of Works with the Outback Regional Road Technical Group might be to look at partnering with Longridge as well. That's another way we can value add, is if we get the two shires on board to say, right, well, let's make this our next project. We want to widen both.
Definitely.
Not widen, sealed from both sides of this.
Yeah.
Yes, Dan.
I suppose just to that point, Mr Mayor and Councillor Peoples, there is a discussion we need to have with Council around the hierarchy and investment strategy review for the Outback Regional Roads and Transport Group. So we'll work on something to have something for the September, first September meeting potentially for discussion, where at I suppose a higher level we can have advocacy from that group. For that road potentially, if that's what Council wants to have the advocacy.
Did you say the first September meeting?
No.
Just the September meeting?
We'll still do it for the September meeting?
Yeah. Do I have a mover for the resolution 345? Councillor Hanson, seconded Councillor Plum. Further debate? Carried. Sorry, those in favour? Against? Carried, 6-0. Do you have a conflict of interest, Councillor Stevens? Benny?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So this is another program that Council adopted as part of its budget this year, the Town Streets Upgrade Capital Program. This program is, I think it is largely funded by the Roads to Recovery program. So in the budget, Council adopted a program of 650,000, and this project is considering those projects to be allocated to that funding from that program in the budget. So number one on the list that Council has is additional funding for Box Street, Ash to Elm Street. So that project is looking at the curb and channelling and the running surface being upgraded as well. So there was 100,000 allocated in the 22-23 program. However, to do that project, it is a $200,000 project. So there's an additional 100,000 proposed to be allocated to that. That funding is funded through TIDS funding. The second project, so what Council's contract engineers have is as an improvement program for our drainage in the Barcaldine area. The program is looking, they have preferred, I suppose, progress on where we go next with improving that drainage across the Barcaldine area. And next project on that list of priorities is Willow Street, between Fir Street and Boree Street. So as a part of the ongoing drainage issues in Barcaldine, that is where the next project would be preferred. So that is for curb, channel and drainage and a new sealed section as well. The allocation for that is 350,000, and then the remainder of the money is for the first section of Gordon Street. So 200,000 to be allocated to that project in Aramac, which is the main street in Aramac. So is the remainder, and that will be funded by Roads to Recovery as well.
Are we going to get them? So for 200,000, we're going to get 1.09 kilometres of street rehab?
No. So, sorry, Mr Mayor, that is for the first section of that.
The project is changed 0 to 1.09, and we're just funding the first 200,000 of
The
that.
first 200,000 of that, the remainder would be funded as part of the 24-25 budget.
Right, the extra.
400,000.
Which we've got to find. Yeah, we haven't yet got, but we're hoping that Roads to Recovery program is continued and we'll be able to pull it from there.
Yep.
Right. Questions? From those few of us that do remain, Councillor.
With the Box Street, Ash Street, to Elm Street, has that been allocated as to a timeline when it's going to be done?
It's getting designed at the moment.
So currently the project's being designed as we speak, and then there is, I suppose, a rough timeline of around February would be when we would look to be delivering that project.
One of the problems
for the
with
next tourism season.
Yeah, one of the things with curb and channeling is the lack of local availability. We've got to try and work in with external contractors who have the machinery to do that, and they're
Long way away.
well, and there's a lot of councils spending this exact pool of money on this exact same thing, and some of them have a lot more money than we do, so they value add to it. They might put together a $4 million curb and channel seal. So Livingston, for example, could be doing a really big one. Or one of these contractors actually lives in Livingston, so that's going to get priority over this, just simply because he doesn't have to mobilise to come out here, you know.
Where we can, if we can do 3 or 4 projects and get them here for that period of time, they'll do it while they're all here.
So, will the community business people in that area be advised?
They're being constantly consulted about this now.
Thank you.
So through the chair, so as a part of, certainly Box Street, Willow Street, all those property owners are certainly informed as to what's happening there, similar to what's happening in Beach Street, I understand, that's currently happening. Gordon Street is probably a larger project, given it is the main street of Aramac. There is a lot more consultation that we need to provide with those business owners so they can continue to operate their businesses. While when roadworks is around, regardless of the amount of consultation and access you still provide to the property owner, to those business operators, they are still somewhat impacted. People tend to stay away from the area a little bit as well. So trying to reduce that as much as we can to have an efficient process so we're moving through that area quite quickly is a larger communication engagement program for that Gordon Street project.
I guess the other add-on to that is when tourist season's on, we're trying to not impact tourists and road as well.
Can I just ask you, through Mr. Mayor, do we employ contractors to actually do the curb and channel, do we?
Well,
For that stuff, yeah. We don't have a machine to do
no,
that.
it's the owner of the machine. Yeah, we might provide some labour and some TA, do we?
Yeah, but we don't have a machine to do it.
I think that Beach Street job was done solely by the contractors. I don't think we're involved. I think they did it on a Saturday, I think, from memory.
We profiled it, we boxed ready to go, and then they come in and lay it, and then we do it on the backfill.
Bit of a hybrid.
Sorry?
It's a hybrid model. The concrete elements are done by others, but the works before and after are usually done by us. What's your thoughts, Councillor?
My thoughts?
Yeah.
My thoughts is I would like to inquire, I'd like to inquire into the cost of a curb and channel machine. Because they're simple, I know things change dramatically, but 30 odd years ago they were quite a simple machine that I operated for hours and hours and hours and got lots of streets in Emerald with a curb and channel machine. And I'm just interested to know how much that costs. Because you don't need a very big trailer to cart them around, and we've got 5 towns that have all got curb and channeling. So it's just something that I'd like to get a costing on.
May three years to contract other towns if that's the case, if we had our own machine crews.
We could well do, because I'm aware that this contractor does service virtually all of the people. I don't know too many others out here this far out that operate one. Not because I don't know why, I just don't think they do. This bloke used to do a lot when he's out here. So yes, there could be potential for revenue there externally if we could resource it.
And further, thank you for that. The other, I've misunderstood what you meant about the Gordon Street. There's only $200,000, so it's only $200,000 in this allocation with more funding to be found.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Councillor, please.
It's a bigger stretch of road, but we're only focused on one section at a time.
Yeah.
More to be found and that to then occur for works in the next financial year. There's only time in the scope of works for that little amount of money to be spent this year as it is anyway.
Thank you.
Do I have a mover? Councillor Gleeson, second Councillor Plum. Those in favour? 5-0. Right. Go on, back and all return here.
Can you lock the door when Jerry comes back in? Occasionally leaves it open. We always forget about it.
Have to lock us in or lock somebody out?
We can do either.
For a session and a half.
I do lock it every afternoon when I come through to make sure for anyone listening.
351, can I have somebody please move the financial performance report be received? Councillor Hanson, second Councillor Peoples, those in favour? 7-0. Dean.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank Heather and Sarah for preparing the report. We've certainly had to roll through in this new budget. We are doing some work to look at the report content and provide, I suppose, additional information for councillors and the community that are reading the report on how our finances are going. It's a lot easier to do when we have such a positive, I suppose, a positive report and bank balance at the moment. If we look at our financial performance, so given it is the first month and there is some lag on a payment of a few on works happening in July, it does look like we are slightly underspent in a lot of areas. And also our revenue is progressing not too bad. There is a few phasing issues, and what I mean by phasing issues, so the budget is currently just phased evenly each month. And so if we have a look at something like the rates, is showing that we got a budget of 646,000 for year to date, when really we haven't levied rates and we won't levy until September. So we need to make those adjustments, which we'll do over the next couple of weeks to get that corrected. So that was one area. Also the grant subsidies and contributions and donations also is a bit overstated in the budget space. The overall budget's still correct, it's just that we're saying we should have already started to receive that, which we were never expecting any money, that amount of money in July. Similar to employee expenses, showing as under budget, but that does have a few days left from the July period that weren't included, which were paid in August. And I suppose what we're doing is starting to develop up some of those accruals journals so that we can recognise some of that expenditure. We mightn't have spent it yet, but at least we can recognise it from a financial perspective in the reports to show that we have effectively spent it. We just might have the money and left our bank account yet. So from a revenue perspective, our fees and charges for the first month are quite good. The interest received, we haven't recognised that for the month of July, but given we've got nearly 30 million in the bank, that is a very positive result, probably between around $80,000 in interest for the month, which is a lot more than we're expecting. A couple of works is also lower than expected with that phasing, as I mentioned. In the expenditure space, we're sitting a little lower, as I mentioned earlier in the preview. If we look at our maintenance programs, so our rural roads, we've made a positive start there and started to work on some of our flood damage works as well. The town streets has already some significant expenditure there, and our plant operations and parks and gardens are also progressing quite well for this as well. Plant is quite high compared to budget for this time of year, but that's because we have paid the registration for the year already. So if we're looking at our financial performance, cash assets are just a tick under 30 million at the end of July. There's still some funding to come in for the Barcaldine flood damage prepayment. That hasn't come in yet. That should come in the next couple of weeks. And also when the Aramac one gets finalised before the end of the month, that should push us north of 30 million.
Some RMBC equivalents in that come too, so.
Yeah, isn't there like a pretty large one from them? A couple of them?
About that, 100.
Yeah.
So cash at the moment is looking quite positive. At the moment we've got most of that cash sitting in our QTC fund, earning interest there. We are looking at whether we invest that further afield in some term deposits in line with our investment policy over the next couple of weeks as well, so just to see if we can get some better rates potentially. The capital work summary, so I'll talk more about that in the project progress report. The plan has a large list of new items to be purchased once the program's finalised, and also our buildings and other structures has seen some early projects already start to commence there as well. If we look at our cash, as I mentioned, we are in a very positive space at the moment. We're still using the monthly cash average for last financial year, so next month we'll revert back to starting to use this year now that we've got a couple of months to work with July and August. So that is showing quite well as well. So on both the surplus cash calculation council has here and also the unrestricted cash expense cover ratio, we're looking at around that 7 months, I believe. Mentioned a few programs there that we got expecting some funding for. I didn't mention the RMPC and main roads contracts. We've still got some money to come in there, but we we do have some positive cash to still flow into our, over the next couple of weeks. Mr Mayor.
Questions? Councillor Peebles?
No, good, thank you, Mr Mayor.
No comment about that bank balance?
No, all good, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Gleeson? No, right, thank you. First time in 7 years he hasn't commented on the bank balance. Councillor Leeds? Which is wonderful. I wasn't actually throwing shade at you there, Councillor Gleeson. Sorry. Thank you for the observation. Councillor Blunt?
No, more good and, thanks for your work, Dan. Your work. It's good.
Councillor Rogers? I just still think that positive revenue position generated by interest moving forward is the big boost that the early prepayment of FAGs provides. I've said it before, but I can't underscore that the forecast that I provide anyway, not necessarily an economist, but for interest rates over the remainder of this year is going to more than offset considerably areas that we mightn't have expected expenses to go up. I think the revenue, if our investment policy is put into full practice, the revenue we could get from elements of our cash, yes, we're fortunate. Sometimes it pays to be on the spot at the right time. You know, we've got a significant prepayment for flood damage, which ordinarily we would curse, coupled with 100% prepayment of FAGs, or effectively not quite. We're actually due to still receive another 440,000 in FAGs payments over the remainder of this year. That'll finalise our payments, so I'm not quite 440. I think we're looking at $107,000 a quarter. Is what the remainder of our allocation of federal assistance grants are. So, you know, even that's, you know, we say we got 100%, but there's still a 400,000 to come in. That's not an insignificant sum of money. That's 10% of our real rates, for example, you know. So I think that the investment policy put to full practice will certainly deliver us real revenue gains that we would not have ordinarily expected to get, definitely didn't budget to get. So any little shocks in a project may be softened by the fact that we've got some additional revenue to help maintain our budgeted cash position.
The rate we're getting at the moment, Dan?
Yeah, I got asked that yesterday, but I haven't had a chance to check. I think it's well over 4% we get from the cash fund at QTC.
Last time I looked, we're about 4.7.
Yeah,
4.75, something like that.
I think there's a few banks like Macquarie are offering north of 5.
No, there's a few offering 5.
Yeah. So there's some opportunity there. That's what I mean. We haven't really looked at the term deposit space for a long time, I don't think. So we're starting to, we'll start to get into that space to move some of that money out, because we do have enough surplus cash to be able to operate without that money for a 6-month period or something like that.
Yeah, 5% on that sort of figure is very, very good.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it may not be long felt increased interest rates. You know, a lot of leading lending institutions, economists are forecasting realistically rates not to go back to where they were, but to be certainly dropping off within the next 12 months. 1 or 2 may go up for the first, and then, you know, middle of next year they're forecasting at least 1, maybe 1.5 back on where it is now. So, you know, it's there now, but it probably we're not likely to see a long sustained period of interest rate rises. Is what the advice of people like chief economists at Westpac and ANZ are putting out in the last couple of weeks. So, as a business person, I hope they're right. As an investor of council funds, I hope they're wrong. But I think lower interest rates are better for our local economy than they are higher for our cash position.
Yeah, I've got one financial advisor thinks that they're going to plateau there and not move too much. What's his opinion?
Either way, they're still at historical lows.
Yeah.
352, the Community Care Services Report. Can somebody please move we received that? Councillor Plum.
Yes.
Second, Councillor Gleeson. Those in favour? Carried. Dan?
I must recall it being 7 million.
The community care report, thanks Mr Mayor. So we have been, I know I've been reporting we've been doing a lot of work in this space each month, but I suppose I really do need to recognise Heather's contribution in this space, working with Gordon and his team to better understand the funding and the way it moves throughout this, the various programs. Over the last month, there has been a lot of learnings for us and some opportunity of where we may have missed the boat on a few things, and putting some systems and processes in place to make sure we're not doing that in the future and we're picking up all that funding that we are eligible for. So if we look at the programs individually, there has been a significant increase in the interest from the community in the CHSP program. The home care packages are running at a loss, but this is due to work being completed and not yet paid for. And the council's Home Assist Secure has received 75% of its total funding for the 23-24 financial year. NDIS continues to grow and be, I suppose, our most significant contributor. And I think in that program we have found some opportunity for where we can even expand, I suppose, our opportunity for return on that investment we're putting into that program. So I'll leave it at that for now. I'll take any questions.
Councillor? I take your silence as in approval. Agenda item 371, Darren. Report. Can I please have somebody move that be received? Councillor Giggles, seconded. Councillor Gleeson, in favour. 7-0. Karen.
Sorry.
That's right. Yeah, your report.
Yes, sorry. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just if we can take that the report has been received and read. There's a couple of things of note. The two long-term projects, I guess, the ongoing Alpha Gates. So we are extremely close now to having those installed, which will be wonderful. So hopefully at the next meeting I'll be able to report that they're installed and have photographic evidence, which would be lovely, which they will highlight the Settlers Park and the gardens area there. The Jericho ATM, so we have been given a new proposal which has been signed off, but also there's no great significant change as it still falls within the budget that was approved. So once we send that back, we should be moving to an installation date for the Jericho ATM. And I have had the community of late raise that issue again, so I'll be happy to report to them once I've got a date for installation. Apart from that, the town supervisor is doing great work with the gardens and the water treatment plants, etc. for our area, as well as our RLO. So everything is moving along nicely for Alpha and Jericho as we head towards our new projects. Thank you.
Questions for the report before we go to the resolution?
A couple, please.
Yeah, fire away.
Karen, the driving theatre for the waiver fee there for the movies and State of Origin, is that the Origin just gone or the one?
Oh, so for the three, so yeah, no, that is the one.
Yeah, it's the one that's just happened this year.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought we might have been getting in early for next year.
Well, it's for the 12-month period, so I think we had one in July was the last State of Origin, so it was July, and then it'll be for the two May, June for next year.
Right.
Yeah.
For this whole 12 months.
Yeah, 12-month period. And I heard a suggestion earlier that maybe if Matildas make the final, we might put that up on the screen as well. So I'll contact the Jericho P&C.
You need a permit.
I've emailed you the permit application process.
Great, excellent, thank you.
if
Just that.
anyone is interested in attending the Magic Mike movie, the 26th of August, cocktails will be served.
With the
Further question, yes.
long-range coach stop,
Yes.
we've advised that we will contribute to one bus shelter on the eastern route.
We are still having to wait from TMR, so they approached us wanting to build two, and I said, that's just ridiculous. Go back to them and see whether they'll handle one, and they wanted to spend $80,000 a unit. Karen found what we could do them for.
Well, actually, Georgia, I'll give Georgia the credit. There are shelters there that we think will fit the bill, and you can actually buy them for around $10,000 to $12,000, and I'm sure our people can install them. That way, we will get two for, $25,000-$30,000.
A decision will come to council because it's out of budget, but we have to see whether TMR will accept what we're putting, because what they were putting to us was grossly over. There was 77 passenger movements
Yes.
using Jericho through the regulated route, and they wanted to put $160,000 worth, 80,000 of it our money, and I just said that was just way uncalled for. So the proposal's gone back to them to consider our counter proposal, and if that's the case, it'll come to council for a budget allocation.
Okay, no, well, I just couldn't remember it being in the budget that says we've already advised that we're going to contribute.
They'll have to accept our proposal before we, because I just said we would not, and under any circumstances, count. It's an $80,000 bus stop in Jericho for 77 people, and they couldn't tell us how many got on or off. Some of them are off. It's not even 77 getting on. So, yeah, it was out of step with us. So we've asked whether they'll accept the counter proposal, and then if that's the case, we'll see if we can find some funding and bring it to council for approval.
Okay.
I'm sceptical that TMR will accept it, to be honest, but hopefully they see common sense. Further questions before we go to the resolution?
Yeah, well, actually, the shade sale for the skate park, that was in the budget, was it?
Yes. Yeah, I believe that it's a replacement through.
It's not in the budget.
It was damaged by storm, so
Storm.
it's insurance claim insurance.
There is, yeah. So I'm still waiting for more information from Bob on that, but I am starting to feel some pressure from the community because August, September, so it's going to be really hot soon, and they want that shade sail back up. So we're looking at a different type of shade sail, so a 3-triangle thing that will let the breeze through and hopefully won't rip as easily as the solid shade, where the breeze and the wind and that can't get out. But this is the third time we've replaced it in 5 years, 5 or 6 years. So it's maybe we have to look at a more permanent solution that's going to withhold the storms that we get.
Okay.
But
That
we have
proposal's
to
fully
go to-
contingent on insurance though.
Insurance, yeah.
Yeah.
Climate change.
Sorry.
I said climate change. Storms.
Right, 372, questions?
Mayor,
Yes.
before we get going, it's a colour-bond fence with concrete, no doubt?
No, it's the continuation of what's there.
I believe so, yes.
But I mean, concrete involved, it's not just a kitschy post and rail?
I think it is just like, I didn't bring it, still fence, so, yeah. I can,
Most of the concrete it in, but I don't know that they'll be using an agitator to mix the volume required.
Don't know, Mr Mayor. So I'll declare a conflict. I did have a question on it, but I forgot it this morning. Due to the potential.
I don't think there will be a lot of concrete, councillor.
We're not according to
It's not tender or anything, this is just advice.
I know, but I don't see that as any different as being outside the budget process.
All right, councillor.
As the ones that I've already done. So I'll declare a conflict of interest
Due to your relationship with Michael Ormond.
as my employer.
Karen, go.
So this will actually,
You want me to present it?
yeah, Dan, I'll work with Dan on this one.
So similar to the programs that we were discussing earlier, program in the budget council approved was 50,000. That was approved to go towards the cemetery fencing program across the region. Council officers have reviewed each of the cemeteries across the region and looked at the projects that were put forward, that could be put forward. I suppose the Jericho Cemetery fence was probably the...
Sorry, Dan, I'm leaving too.
Why, on the basis of
On the basis that I could possibly,
supply materials?
yes.
Councillor Peoples became aware of conflict of interest due to his relationship or his business interests. Karen Cutcross. So, community policy ready.
So the preferred option from the officers is probably the Jericho Cemetery fencing upgrade. But given the price was in excess of what the program was allocated, we have reverted to the recommendation of the second option, which is the Alpha Cemetery fencing, looking to keep key issues, trying to keep the wildlife out, which is what I suppose all their fencing was aimed to try and do. The projected cost for that project is just a tick over 44,000. With the remainder of the funding, the officers are recommending that there is been some requests and to do some work with the RSL Memorial at the Barcaldine Cemetery, and we'll start that project as well with the remaining funds.
Questions?
Mr Mayor, to you Dan, what's going to happen with the return services leaving more in the market as to, is it being shifted or is it upgraded? Is it you, Jen?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's just about an idea that I've had after seeing some things in other communities about putting something there that, yes, we've got the gates, it's a designated RSL. It'd be nice to put something there like we've done with the Tropic of Capricorn sign, something that shows the significant value of that area, just like, you know, might be some cutouts of soldiers or horses. The one I've seen that is very magnificent, and I recommend anyone who has the opportunity to go that way, Emu Park has a very significant monument to the Anzacs. They have a walk that comes down from the singing ship and all the way along. It's absolutely magnificent. It is really well done, and I think that, you know, we have local people buried here, and I think if we start sort of showing that area out a little bit, we don't have the ocean for them to look out to through a beautiful glass window, but I just think that's my idea there. And I had been working with the previous president, and he thought that there may be some RSL funding. So when I was talking to Dan, when Dan was talking to me about this, I thought this was an opportunity to actually start that conversation again. And there may be some RSL funding out there as well that could go with it. Yeah.
So obviously it's not a lot of money to do.
No.
So that's why I was just wondering how much you're going to get done or able to do.
Through you, Mr Mayor, it would be the start. You know, it could be the start of one sculpture that you can add to, like we did our Tree of Knowledge walk, something like that. Something that you can add to, whether it be at the gates or be at the back. You know, work with the RSL to find what they would like to, you know, if there's something that they'd like to see there. Yeah.
Further questions?
Chair. Probably something I neglected to say in a couple of those other reports as well is these are improvements to our assets, so increasing the value of our asset value across the region. Therefore, that comes with that is increasing our depreciation as well. So I probably should have. It was in the reports, but I didn't mention it when I was presenting them earlier. Sorry, but and in most cases, the projects are looking to mitigate some risk as well. So by us doing these upgrades, it may have some improvement on the level of maintenance we've got to do on those roads or on this infrastructure as well. So keeping the wildlife out, for example, is certainly looking at trying to reduce the amount of work we need to do to work with that in our cemeteries.
Yes, that's right. So just in terms of, right, so priority's been done, Alpha's there, Jericho was just here, and we'll have to look at a new budget for that, or revising the scope, which would have delayed the project. Are we holding Aramac and Muttaburra back here by going Alpha first, Paula?
No.
No, and Buckle and Jenny, you're happy that that's the right project, that there's not something that is more important to be done here than the Alpha fence?
To Mr. Mayor, no, they did pull up the fence at our cemetery. There was just a few bits of tidy up that they had to do a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, you can't stop people, or on times leaving the gates open, but it really has reduced the number of roos in there.
Okay. All right, so we just, go. I was just going to summarise, but go. No, all I was going to say is that just want to make sure that we're all comfortable, that we're not just shoveling everything at Alpha and Aramac and Muttaburra missing out. But I do note the very good work that you've done over the last several years in, installing the new burial areas at those cemeteries, and that they do, they're a credit, and plus the work with fencing that has started in some of the, at Jericho up front, but the completion of that project will just need, we'll need to get out and get into the nut and bolts of what we actually want there, rather than perhaps what we were hoping to do on a larger scale may need to either be revised down or we throw more money at it, including simply like there was a community request, and we're going to have to communicate pretty openly to the community when we go back there. No, the reason we've held out is it's just going to cost too much. But one of the things is the prices for the tree removal were just out of this world. The quote we saw to move a dozer from one side of the road to the other for $5,500 or some ridiculous amount of money was just like it sunk the project because of the cost of construction in an area where it just shouldn't have cost that much. It's really disappointing, and we may have to look at what our alternatives are, to improve the quality of that asset, just because of the prices we're being charged by our contractors to do some of this work. That's just, so I applaud the officers for not coming to us with an increase to the budget, but I do sympathise with the people of Jericho who have been really clear and resolute in getting that tidied up. We're just going to have to revisit that on their behalf. Move up. Plum, Councillor Plum, seconded, Councillor Gleeson. Those in favour? 5-0. Councillors can return.
Mr. Mayor, with regards to the machinery to do them, is it trees to come down? Is it what's...
trees to come down. Big trees.
Oh, brilliant.
Can I have somebody please move Paula's report be received? Councillor Rogers moves, second. Councillor Gleeson, those in favour? 7-0. Paula, go.
We've had a number of events over the last month which have been very successful, and we've had some awesome weather. We've got quite a few number of events coming up in the next couple of weeks also. So you've all been invited to the Aramac Race Club tent. So if you can RSVP to me today whether you'll be there or not, so I can let the club know. The Harry Redford Committee had a meeting a few weeks ago, so that's getting some traction now and quite a bit of interest. We've only advertised basically on Facebook and Outback Magazine, and we've had quite a few inquiries, so those seats will fill fairly fast, I'm assuming. My projects, the Muttaburra recreation toilets, so still pushing hard to get the contractor on site, so they'll be done for the camp draft at the end of September. And all the other projects are starting to get some traction now too. RLO, we've put in 4 submissions for capital works funding, and we put in 5 actually, 4 were successful. So we'll be looking to complete those by the end of the year.
I know it's not the right time to wait till the next one, but I've had a chance to have the preliminary inspection of the toilets that have been put up here, and the ones from Muttaburra are exactly the same, just one shorter.
Yeah, they're smaller.
Yeah, 1 or 2. But
Yeah.
they were incredible. They are, yeah. There's, like, I think they're a really good thing, and to the point that any other community groups that are looking to expand on toilet facilities, whether they're on our land or others, I really recommend them as a really good thing. Like, obviously we get to see operationally is there tricks and whatnot to them because they're not operational, but the quality of the material, I don't think we've endeared ourselves to the carpenter or the plumber for putting them together. I think they're a bit fiddly, but once they're up, they look very solid and very good. One lot of bird flashing that we might need to keep an eye on the eaves, on the ends of them. Looks a little open, but in fairness to the builder, that they weren't finished, so that might be still going on yet. But yeah, once they're up, they're sleek and they look like cleaning them should be relatively simple. The showers in them are really good size for parents with children going for a shower, like small children. Like the whole little complex that they are, I think looks really, really good. For the value, realistically, I think they're good value for money. They appear to be. So, yeah, I hope they're up for this year's event, but I mean, even for future events, they're going to be very good. We'll see them in action in a few weeks at Westec. Hope that plant the sewage lines.
But you official opening before Westec, just.
Sorry.
Got an official thing before Westec.
Along
For
with
inspection of councils to and try on that.
I won't be attendance. Right, further questions for Paul?
We're going to be rolling, we might as well.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
The fundings for the rural land officer, for the concrete trolls and pumps and tanks, etc., they're state government funding. Does that total cover wages, vehicle hire, total?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, that's everything included.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And once again, water rate notice issues, is that obviously like a warning that there's too much water running down the footpath?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, they removed a water meter, so just got a notice.
Accident.
Any more for any more? Could I have somebody move Jenny's report be received, please? Councillor Arthur, seconded Councillor Plum, those in favour? 7-0. Jenny?
I take the report as being read. Just an update on some of the projects. There's some work happening over at the pool for the upgrades this week to do with some repairs to the pipework leaks. Call for quotes for painting of the wading pool as paint is lifting quite badly in there and it's getting sucked up, which is quite dangerous. That hopefully getting that organised in the next week or two. The unfortunate thing, there's not many painters that come forward to paint those sorts of things, so the painter has got lots of jobs going on. The toilet upgrade, as you can see, it's looking very good. I'm going to meet with the carpenter over there tomorrow, just regarding a little bit extra of a pathway to ensure that there's access to the disability from all areas. It's very much on target. There's still some money there, so they've done very well there. We've got the master plans. We've had our first meetings about those. We've got the architects are looking to be here the week of Westec, just waiting for some further confirmations there. And they will be holding meetings with the community and users of those facilities. The Good Shed upgrade, last Westec meeting we did look at the building, the flooring was done, the walls were partially up. Haven't been over this week, but it would be getting very close to completion. Westec's only a few weeks away. The others I'm calling on vendor panel. We have ordered the pool cleaner. The new shoring equipment for the cemetery is also on order. Tourist Information Centre, Carla provided a separate report which you did have some discussions about yesterday in our meeting. It's there. Has been busy, and as again I cannot thank the volunteer enough for the work he does there. He is there every day regardless. He, in the absence of Kylie, if she's going to training, he's happy to run it by himself. It's very good. You can see what I've been doing there. The parks and gardens, they're keeping very busy, keeping everything maintained. They're trying to do a fix around the skate park. We've tried a couple of times. They're hoping that the blocking it off for a bit longer, that will stay up there so they can try and get that grass growing over that mound where it just washes away. They've tried that matting that you get the grass to grow through. It just keeps running away, washing away. We just don't know how we can fix that. So, yeah, apart from that, open for any questions.
Questions, please? Rogers. There we are, Councillor Plum.
Jenny, the stage 3 of the rec park work, what will we see possibly first out of that stage 3 of all commence? What are we looking at?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would be thinking that their first focus would be the shade structures. So there's the shade structures, the pathways and lighting. So I would think their first focus, I think, would be the shade structures. Because they've got the picnic tables along there and that's what I think is needed, so yeah.
And do you think that would be by the time the roads get there?
To you, Mr. Mayor, no, I don't believe so. Because the rowing is the 16th of September, when the first on-site meeting with the developers for the master plan will only be the week before the week of Westpac. They will also meet with council as well, but yeah, I can't see that they'll have that done before the roads get here.
So I believe that the CEO and Councillor Peoples and Councillor Arthur would need some shade there while they're mowing.
Through Mr. Mayor, we have got, they will put up shade structures like the pop-up marquee, so there will be shade at the, like they did last time at the facility.
If you travel faster than the speed of light, I can't see how you can get sunburned.
I think rather clever observation from you, Councillor Plum. Well done.
Well, most of us will be underwater. It's bad.
Kate did mud signal.
Councillor Gleeson, do you have any comments or questions for Jenny, please, that may not have anything to do with this gentleman's inability to row?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor.
I'm good, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Beck.
No, I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor. All right, agenda item 392. Right. I'd like to close the meeting under section 254J, part 3, clause G. Negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving a local government for which a public discussion would be likely to prejudice the interests of local government. Councillor Peoples moves. Seconded, Councillor Plum. Before I do, any officer got a problem with going into closed session? Councillors, those in favour? Carried, 7-0. Okay. Councillors, the resolution is that the decision be deferred until the CEO and District Manager meet with the club after preparing a draft lease agreement for their consideration. Do I have a mover? Councillor Plum, seconded. Councillor Hanson. Debate. Those in favour? 7-0. 3-10-1. Do I have a mover, please, to receive the report? Councillor Gleeson, a seconder. Councillor Plum, those in favour? 7-0. Dan, are you presenting this one? Sarah?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Please see attached the, I'll jump straight into the project progress report. We made a few, I suppose, we brought forward all the previous tables of information we've had, but we've added a couple of new ones. Hopefully providing some additional information for council on an overall progress on our projects going forward. And I'll look to add a few more tweaks to it over the coming months to provide some additional information. So the first part of the report looks at our carry forward projects from the previous year. So these projects were largely ones that were in progress or of a capital nature, or we are progressing towards now that we have a bit more, I suppose officers are a bit more comfortable with the direction that we're looking to take. So if I just run through a couple of those in the community space. So the pool upgrades are progressing, and that's got a fair bit of funding or funded through the W4Q program. Also the LRCIP 3 projects have been carried forward as well, and they are progressing. We do have a little bit of money we need to shuffle around there as well, as we do have a couple of projects that have run over or are going to run under. So we'll look to tidy that up in the next couple of weeks as well with the federal department to get that aligned. Also the priority flood cameras there is a project we've managed to get an extension approved by QRA, so we've got to the end of the year. We're just at the moment meeting with Main Roads, as that's been on our books for a while, and they are a co-contributor to that, so we need to make sure that they're still willing to contribute to their contribution.
The council did identify spots for those cameras to go?
Yeah. Operationally we did, and it was predominantly a couple of them in the Aramac area where there's potential for a road inspector to cross one creek, check the other one, and then be cut off on the return.
Yeah.
So that was a critical one, and there was another one.
There's 10. There's 10. So the ones that are identified, I believe, are, I think there's 2 on Eastmere Road. Pine Hill Road, one had one, 2. No, that's the one into town.
Yeah, there's a list there.
I've got a list. I was saying it on me right now.
To us all to find it.
In the services space, so a lot of the work that's sitting there is in the sewage treatment plant and also the Acacia Street bore are probably the 2 major projects there. The CEO spoke about them earlier. Also some funding there around the landfill rehabilitation. That is largely done with the exception of the fencing, I believe. And I've also attached the plant progress of the replacement, so as you can see, a lot of the remaining items, I've only included the remaining items that haven't been delivered out of that program in the report. So everything's been ordered, or there's a few things where we have received the item more recently and we're just waiting on the sale of the previous items of the replaced plant to be progressed. So we are starting to see some of those items roll through now. I think a couple of the vehicles have arrived in the last couple of weeks. Transport space, a lot of the work outstanding there from the carry forwards was around has continued to progress, and all fundings are tied to nearly all of them. So Box Street there was the one we referred to earlier, that has been carried forward as part of the additional program funding for the additional funding that was allocated earlier. So we will now get started. In the economy space, there's a few things there to be tidied up around the dip yards at Alpha. I do note there was a significant herd in the yards using that for, which is first time in a long time we've had that happen. So had some income come through there in the last week or 2.
A few of them stuck there too, I do believe.
Yeah, they were there for a couple of extra nights.
Yeah,
Lots
of different ticks on different mobs.
So doing it. It was good to be able to get back in the swing of things,
yeah.
Get some revenue coming back in there. The offer gates, as we mentioned, are progressing, and the public rest area on the Sculpture Trail is also seeking some advice on that. If we move into the program Probably just ask any questions going along, councillors, if you do. The capital program for 23-24 has commenced. I think I was mentioning to the district managers yesterday there's a race on who gets the first project completed for the year. I do have the goods shed marked as practically complete, but I understand there's still a bit of work to be done there. So it's not the goods shed, but it'll probably be a pool cleaner arriving between Aramac and Barcaldine. So they're both on order and currently in transit.
What about, was it carried forward, was it? And I just missed it. The Alpha Showgrounds for public address system.
Yeah, that's still there. Yep, can go on.
Oh, you
We're just putting together through a tender document to go out for that. We're still I suppose working through to make sure that the volume of speakers in one particular area that the
users identified.
that the supplier has suggested is quite significant. It's like 50 speakers. So we just which is blew that project out. So a large amount of that funding, well, that entire allocation was supposed to be for lights, electricity and sound, but based on the estimates we got for the sound, it's nearly the entire budget is tied up with that. There's been a few commitments made on some ordering of equipment and stock and whatnot for the capital projects that are kicked off for this year. But now that we've got some further clarity today, confirmation from council on a few programs, some of those projects will start to make their way through to being being commenced. So in the I don't know if I've got anything to add in the current capital projects. The Town Street reseals, I think the tenders, if it's not closed, is very close. And that report will have to come to council next month, or when it's ready to go to council for approval, given the value. The operational projects, so there was a fair bit of money tied up in this. So some of the projects in this space have already commenced as well. The flood damage is a large component of that. I've included in here as I suppose a special project, I'm calling it. It is got an element of capital in it as well as operational, but I've just put it all in there for clarity of one spot for now. So that is those projects there as well.
Questions?
Mr. Mayor, maybe it's something we can do, like when we do our first quarterly, like a budget review. If we can get a little bit of a report about those projects from the previous year that have gone over budget by, say, more than 10%, like a little bit of a detailed breakdown as to...
Causation.
Yeah. Because we do get bits and pieces of it through the year, but sometimes my old brain doesn't keep track of them.
So is that the ones that were completed last year?
Yeah, that doesn't mean like the completed or the carryover ones from the previous year. If we can just have a little bit of a synopsis as to whether it was supply chain issues or rework, or I don't know, it was underscoped, or we decided to do more improvements to save time down, just so that we can get...
Sorry, Dan, just so I can get that straight in my head, you mean the projects that we're doing now that were supposed to be done last year that are over budget?
Yes, yeah. So at first quarter, like if we do a budget review of how we're going for this year, as part of it, if we could just get a bit of a report about the ones from the previous year that have gone over...
Time and budget.
Well, time and budget, maybe, yeah. Yeah, but especially over that, like a 10% as a nominal figure over budget. It may well be that we just didn't budget enough for it, because sometimes some of those figures are a little bit rubbery 12 months out.
We go forward, we look at escalation points when we're aware of something happening, it'll come up.
Okay. No more questions? 3.11.1. Can I have somebody move Lily's report to receive, please? Councillor Peoples, seconded Councillor Plum. Those in favour? 7-0. Lily, how did Twinkle and the Moon go yesterday?
It was excellent. There was about 60 people there. 4 people came to the workshop later. The presenter actually advised us that in Blackwall, 4 people came. So we get a big tick, so no, it's excellent.
There's a lot of very excited small children there yesterday.
And she held them, you know, they crept closer and closer. Everyone really seemed to enjoy it. So I definitely recommend them again.
All right, what else in your report?
Survived the motorbike races, Parky camp drive was good.
What would you like?
Have you got anything that you think, I mean, you can take it as read, mostly we do, but is there anything that in particular you'd like to tease out?
There are 2 things. There is one on the podcast. I don't know if people had the opportunity to have a look at that or listen to it.
We haven't shared it yet, I think.
Yes,
There's
we
the
have.
only one.
No, Debbie did.
Yeah.
Debbie shared it.
Okay.
So I just wanted to share that I know everyone's got it. The main thing for me, I guess, is to have a chat about the website. That we're going through an upgrade, and I was actually seeking some sort of input from you. Do you want me to go through what I sent you to explain where we're at with the wireframe?
I think that'd be good.
Okay, thank you. So I've written it all out in preparation. So currently we've been working with LGAQ over 2 stages. Being the initial, the design of the wireframe, which is how everything looks with that bit, and also in the content. It's been a lot of consultation and discussion to get to this stage. The wireframe is what's attached to the report. We are yet to show it to the executive team. It has involved discussion around the look and feel of the page to be more corporate and less tourism. That was how it was initially designed, but our vision is that we'll break it away a bit. We will still have our tourist attractions, but with a link through to the tourism website, which has not been active on its own. Today I'm looking for feedback on the proposed homepage. I can work down the page. This is work in the background. We don't plan to hand it over until it's all ready to go. So by that, what I mean is, if anybody goes to it, although I'm going through the events and updating and doing things like that, the overall look and feel won't look any different to people till we're right, with one exception. We've actually moved, and I'll explain it in the middle, but up the top we've got a business planning and development heading on its own. Headings. Currently we've got 9 headings. We had to put the 2023 planning scheme up on the website legally by Monday the 14th of August, which gave us the opportunity to shuffle some of the other headings to create its own heading. It was previously under council services. This came through as a recommendation from Real Planning, and I think with everything going forward that we need to have it quite accessible. We're still considering if these are the best headings and if they're in the best order. For example, up the top there it reads council, living here. Oh, sorry, no. So up on the. Have you? Pretty, Mr. Mayor, does everybody have this in front of them, or is it? Yeah.
I would do.
I just feel like it's showing you. So currently it's got 9 headings. And the headings that we've got other than best order, for example, should the region come before council or next to living here? So what I mean is we've got council on the left, we've got living here, services, business and planning, our region and contact. So, you know, I want to know if you want to put council first or council at the end and the region first, things like that. So there's still a little bit of shuffle, and I think we'll know the answer more once we hear from you and also the executive team and just see how you all feel that we want it to be. A council that has a number of smaller headings is Livingstone Regional Council. It also has an area that has helpful links, which we don't have currently. So people can go somewhere straight away they know they want, they basically know there's a couple of things, so they're having to navigate everywhere, it'll be there for them. The carousel heading. Now what we mean by that is the bit that normally at the moment, if you look at our website, it's pretty well tourist attractions. Like to make, because we want to make this more corporate and more about council, aim is to slow it down, fade it out and have 2 pictures. Mostly the council building to make it more corporate and another one to just have you say when we're in a community consultative phase. Take me to, I think that's fairly self-explanatory. Have it easy to understand icons that take people to the most popular sections. Council projects, have space for 2. I believe that in any 1 year we should have 2 projects there that we could have up for people to look at all year, but just move them as they go. Local information. Aim is to have current news items, videos or podcasts, things we've produced in this space, plus an area in the Facebook we pull through other latest posts.
Mr. Mayor, can I
The
ask
current-
a question, please?
Sorry.
Can I just interrupt,
Yeah.
please, Lily, and just ask a question? Under council heading, I don't know what's going on, but mine looks like it's written in Latin or something. What's
Yeah,
that?
it's just
mean?
sample text.
A filler.
It's just a filler,
It's
it's
just
just
a filler,
sample text,
right,
that's
yeah.
not. I remember Councillor Gleeson had some concerns when we were recruiting a CEO that we were recruiting one straight out of Pakistan.
Well, Councillor Gleeson and I are sitting here trying to
They
work
speak
out,
Latin in.
decipher it, we're having a bit of trouble.
Well, 2 years now in 3 years, so I'm waiting.
We're in design phase, so this is a chance to
Okay,
say.
That means nothing, it's just generic text that you change to
Sorry,
put
Lily.
your words in.
Now I know what we're doing, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I was up to local information. So at the moment, and I know people keep saying it to us about things have gone by, like, the showground shut down, like it's still up there, but it's, there's about 4 stories there all the time. We only really want to have about 2. Okay, so because at the moment, if we try and take down the showgrounds is shut down for the camp drafting, I can take down that post, but the way this is designed, just gets me another old one up there. So we'll always have 4 there at the moment. So we just want to have 2, one that's local all the time, and then that space for probably the council meeting, the podcast, anything that we produce. Then I've got a new inclusion down the bottom, adding vital statistics. Similar to Winton, because we've been looking at all sorts of we don't want to copy other councils, but we've looked at where we think they do good. They've got something down the bottom with, the population, statistical information, just anything that people want to see at a snapshot.
Well, just on that, councillors, because I think it's a good idea. What are your thoughts about information? Like, I think population's really good. I actually think the area of our council is good, because for some people they struggle to understand how big 53,500 square kilometres is. But what else do you want to put there? What in that vital statistics? Like, do you want our age demographic? Do you want our gross domestic product of our council region?
A map showing.
Yeah, but just in the data, not the map, just there's 4 types of,
It'd be great to have a counter that just keeps going up whenever visitors go through and sign through the visitor centre.
It's how we collect it, whether they come to VIC or we have a road counter or people travel fast every day.
So yeah, what sort of key demographic statistics would you like there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, could I ask someone just to have a look at the Winton website? Dan, would you, or someone, Winton Council, just see what they've got, because I feel that, because LGAQ deals with everybody, that they've probably identified 4 key areas. I didn't write it down on here. So I wondered if you thought that was the sort of information that we want. Just right
So they've got the population, capital projects they're working on, number of staff they employ and how much funding they receive.
If people are going to come here, we know what to bring.
So you can on capital projects, is it, Tanya?
Staff's a good one, I like that. Tracking projects, yeah.
I don't know that I like their graphic though, it's got a down arrow on it. Population's reducing, staff's reducing, pretty bad optic.
Yeah,
Should
maybe
we
don't
choose
put the arrow there.
No,
just-
that's what I
Just
mean,
put it
yeah.
without an arrow.
Yeah, something other than an arrow.
Should we have the weather so that if people are coming to this region, they know roughly what the weather's like?
That'd be a different
Day,
thing
yeah.
probably, but,
Agenda of events.
That'll be up the top.
yep, that'll be in there as well. Yep. Probably what I'm looking for here is just the 4 key vital statistics of the region that you'd like snapshotted. So yes, the calendar of events, yes, the weather, all that stuff's very relevant, but somewhere else, this one would be the weather's actually a hard one to capture. Where do you put the weather from?
That's what I did say to Council Plum, we've got 5 towns, and they can be chucking it down that end or that end, and nowhere else.
And then usually 4 to 5 degrees cooler in Alpha here. Winter and summer.
Just a thought.
We can add multiple links to a reasonable weather forecasting service though, yes.
Anyway, we're not making any headway. Keep going, Lily. I thought we might have 4 great ideas jump out at us, but we're not getting any.
Probably
Well,
like projects, road links.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And lastly, I just want to say that Welcome to Country, we had explored putting it up the top, first up, because when you go to events, it's said first, but there's a trick with that, because it means every time you go to the web, you'll see it, and if someone are in and out, so it was LGAQ's recommendation to have it at the bottom to play it. So that's where we are with it currently. I'm happy to sort of ask people.
All right, well, because we are getting sort of into the belly of the planning phase of it. If you've got ideas like a weather widget, so LGAQ would be able to introduce a weather widget on there, no worries at all, and you can have one for each town. Like, I wasn't being facetious when I'm saying it's different, it's like, where do you put, but theoretically, they could have a rolling widget there that just pops up with the weather today in Muttaburra, in Aramac, like that's cheap, no-brainer stuff that can be done. So that's fine, that's a good idea, it's a different one. Calendar events, well, that's definitely going to be not only council events, but community events, that's incorporated in your calendar.
Yes, it's there.
Yes, so that'll be in there. I think it's really important, Lily, like we've been very quick to promote what we've got on, but I think holistically we'd like to really promote every event that's on, community group organised or council organised shouldn't really matter, like if it's the Ballanini Rodeo that's on, well, we promote that as an event on within our region. There's not many events that happen in our region that we aren't actually actively involved in, either in kind or cash support for, so there's no real reason why we shouldn't be promoting them anyway. Are you intending, just didn't see it in the wireframe, to embed our socials in there as well?
Yes, that was next to the podcast, that's
what that is, right,
that's
okay.
Facebook.
Yep.
And below that is the event calendar, which will be much the same as we've done before, it's just on the first page.
Okay.
Would that local information and the events calendar be better placed above like our projects? Because like if our project stuff is only going to be 2 for the year, they're potentially going to sit there for 6 to 9 months, whereas do you want them more frequently changing stuff like first to eye?
I can take that, we can take, through Ms. Mayor, we can take that back to LGQ.
It may well be a silly idea.
I feel,
No, it's all trying to get our own unique website that we own.
I feel the discussion was around trying to maintain that corporate, and I hear what you're saying about the events and that we are part of the community, but the idea of it being more corporate, I think it's important. If these projects, we're talking, there's a lot of money involved in them, so I feel like they need to be not hidden too much, be somewhere close to the middle.
There's 3 of us there. Who are we actually trying to attract with this? That's probably the biggest question I would ask us. Who do we want to look at? it tourism? Is it people that live here? Is
It'll be business, tourists, locals.
if it's, say it's tourism, for instance, you've got to market it more for the tourism trade rather than what projects we've got coming in at the moment, because they're not going to be there about where to. It's just whether they come out here and spend a week or so. But thinking of the market we're trying to capture.
But the other thing I feel, Mayor, is that the community want to know what the council are doing. So if we're updating them with the progress of the
Because
Oh,
is it
communities.
community we're trying to attract, or is it tourism we're trying to attract? That's the point.
Probably all of it.
All
Like,
of
we
it.
only really have one website, we don't want to maintain 3 or 4 or 5, although we do have we've got a bunch of them, but they're hard. No one really even looks at the other one, so, like, I would see our website's probably predominantly used by people who are trying to gain an understanding. So it could be a tourist who come here, but it could be a prospective employee, it could be a business company looking to set up business here. So it's kind of got to be all of the things. It's got to have a little bit of
That's the way I
everything.
look at it, like Dan's comment, we put the touristy things below the work things. Yeah, because they've got to be the tourism looking at it more so than locals. So you've got to, if they're the first ones that open it, the first thing they want to see is what they can do with Barcode. They're not going to want to know what roads they're going to make it or what gutters they're doing or whatever. The tourism are going to be looking for what can they do here, what events will they see if they go there now. So do you aim solely to that market first and then go down the line to cater for the local market? So I'm not saying which way to go, I'm just asking those questions.
I don't know that there's a perfect answer yet,
Yeah.
because
I'm just
then
asking
there's
those questions.
solid numbers of locals that use it as their go-to reference point for the documents or how to do business with council, not vendor battle business, but they need a form for something, well, they know that that's the place to go if they don't walk into our office, so it's I don't know, like.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting anything, I'm just putting it out there. They're the questions that I'd be asking, so.
Emergency dashboard.
It's
Yeah,
right
yeah.
right at the top. It needed to be visible, and it is at the top.
I think the idea is to get some shovels, drafts out. Council can have a look at it.
Well, that's what that is.
But actually populate it a little bit more with some information, so you can experiment with it in this direction. The next step.
This is also work in motion, so if it comes back and there's a strong feeling of moving things, that's what we do. We get it moved, it needs to be for us.
Mr Mayor? Lily, just with the calendar of events, I don't think we do this now, but can we put in there let's just go races, Barcode and races, but then put the dates that those meetings are on, so as people that are passing through can see, oh, look, there's a race meeting here next weekend, I'll pull up for an extra couple of days.
You, Mr Mayor. I would like some clarity about what exactly puts up there. Like, are we the go-to place for everything? So if we said, and not, I hear what you're saying about a race meeting, but are we also doing every cricket match and every this and that? So what differentiates it to an event? So the way that it happens at the moment is that people fill it out a form to be put on the events calendar, and that's how we sort of do it, that's how it goes in order. If we are the one place to seek all the information, well then could you direct me to do that, and we'll try and fill it in as much as we can.
Well, I think that'd be good.
Well, it's knowing who we are, I guess.
Just a question with websites, I don't know how to work these, but is there a possibility with the events calendar that the Race Club or the Cricket Club can actually go and put their own date on that specific event?
We've got to be out of that.
We've got to do it.
It's missing.
It's just a request though. The Radio Theatre, they have every Friday the movies up there, and I have maintained that there because I think the tourists coming to town, they need to know that. That's probably the one place to see it.
Mr Mayor, what was did we have a meet, when was it decided to make it more corporate? Who decided that?
I think that was just the approach.
It's just
to
the approach.
try and professionalise it a little bit.
Professionalise it.
Make it easier for
Just
people to
with
interact with.
discussions with LPAQ.
Yeah, I don't think we've discussed it here.
No decision.
I mean, I think the Longreach, or the Lincoln one where it does, I mean, what are the statistics? Like, what is the hits, unique hits on our website, Mia?
To you, Mr Mayor, I could find that out for you.
I think let's go back to the start and let's have a look like what our unique page visits are. Let's have a look at the region, like a simple Google Analytics can show us where people are looking at this from. If the majority of hits are people within the council area, then we change the approach to one style. If the majority of hits are from outside the council area, then we probably focus on another style. If we get lots of people, at what pages within the website are they spending the greatest linker time? So are they looking at how to deal with council more so they are the events calendar or the news? Then once again, we can make those areas more prominent. The data of current usage, whilst the website's imperfect, it still shows us an interrogation of the data will show us what the majority of people are looking at, who they are looking, who it is looking at it, and where they're looking at it from. So I think to guide the next chat about the white approach, we probably need that Google Analytic data. It's actually changed name now, but it's the exact same thing. It'll cost money, but
It's okay.
We need that information.
$60 or $80 is what it's going to cost.
It's a difficult website to navigate now, so if we see what people are looking at, well then.
We know how to bring that information to the front.
All right, we'll take that and bring it back.
It is going to improve the search function though, isn't it? Because that's my
Well, that's part of the problem. The search function's not great, is it?
So are you aware of that?
It's easier to Google stuff with Barcaldine Regional Council, whatever you want, than to go into the website and type in when a rate's due or whatever inside the actual website.
And you get a different answer.
I've heard that.
So that's the problem. It's an old system not working. All right, we'll take that ruling and.
Okay. Radif, 311.2, can I have somebody, discussion, sorry. Cluster Arts for the B project, 4,730. Committee members, issues? Lily?
Through you, Mr Mayor, at the time of doing my report, I had received the application when it's in the process of sending it to the committee. However, additional information has come to light and I subsequently need to recall this recommendation to council until the next meeting.
Can I have our recommendation to defer the decision until the September meeting? Move Councillor Plum, seconded Arthur. Those in favour? Carried, 7-0. Can I have a resolution, please, to receive the response to questions on notice from the July meeting? Move Councillor Gleeson, seconded Councillor Arthur. Those in favour? Motion carried, 7-0. Questions on notice? Councillor Peoples.
Just one, Mr Mayor, out of our last Harry River Cattle Drive meeting, we were going to get a motion on the books today with regards to the council's fully supportive of the drive and come have a look at that, the finances as from the last drive and put that there so it can be used by the Cattle Drive Committee to run this next drive, Mr Mayor. But I'd say that's still a work in progress, Shane, and we'll look to do that next month.
Brings the meeting for council endorsement for the insurance.
Right.
Also for the funding, we're talking about funding that was previously there and then subsequently moved, so we want to bring that back to the table.
All right, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Gleeson. Questions on notice, Councillor Hens?
Good response.
Councillor
No, Mr Mayor.
All good, Mr Mayor.
Mr Mayor, is the breeze still being produced?
Yep.
Previously, councillors always used to get emailed a copy, and I haven't had a copy emailed to me since April. I just wonder
Well,
whether.
I sent you all that the last one too.
Just if it's possible, I'd still like to get a breeze when it comes out.
Certainly.
I think you said it's the Gazette.
Yeah, it's a reasonable. Anyway, all right.
Yes, Deputy Mayor, we get the Gazette, but I haven't received a copy of the briefs or.
I can send them.
Yeah.
I have none. That being the case, the meeting closes at 2. Oh, sorry. District managers, are you of a mind, or councillors, are you of a mind to ask the district managers to investigate live streaming, live broadcasts of the Soccer World Cup? Or do you want them to leave private facilities to run that on their own?
Karen heard it.
Yes, I'd like. Sorry, where did that bus come from?
So, Jericho,
Yes,
you're going to offer it to the drive-in?
yes.
Right, does anyone else want it anywhere else?
Mr Mayor, I just think because it's no facility owned by us, it's a bit difficult to, the only one you'd go to here is Radio Theatre, and it's a bit late.
If they want to do it, they can do it.
That's
It's up to them.
also, it's up to them. I
Yeah.
would personally prefer to leave it up to them. They're
I will.
a standalone organisation.
Done,
so-
meeting closed. 2:08, thank you very much.
Nothing to do with the meeting, but Paul Rocks over here today for catering purposes, what councils are coming to the race meeting?
Oh,
Mr Mayor?
And following that, Mr Mayor,